Good afternoon, students. This is Professor Young. I want to wish everyone a good day. I know that we are back in an academic setting. Week 9, I prepared a screencast-o-matic for an introductory purposes for today, which you will probably watch before this video or this media exchange. The other module that I did included some brief discussion regarding the consumer utility or consumer behavior chapter. In this instance, I wanted to introduce just a couple of additional things that I'm making available for students in this, I called it a COVID reboot format, where we've gone from a lecture class to an online class, which has been a very difficult transition for a lot of people, a lot of students. Yet it's been advantageous for others. I do appreciate if you're still in the class and you've been working, doing your due diligence to pass the course as best you can with the highest grade possible. I appreciate all of your time and efforts there. And again, as I mentioned in my earlier video, I hope that your family and you have been safe during these times. Continue to exercise social distancing. Contrary to what they say on TV, and this is my belief and my belief only, I don't believe that we're out of the woods yet when it comes to this COVID deal. I do feel inherently that there are still some bugs that need to be worked out. I do think that the virus is still something that's out there that's lurking. So I, for one, am very happy that we are not in a lecture component or a lecture sense where we have face-to-face. However, I am missing the engagement with my students. I am missing the board work. I'm missing the calculations and the things that I do on a day-to-day basis to practice my craft. So if you feel a little displaced as a student, the feeling is mutual. At any rate, I wanted to identify what's going on this week. You will notice that we are going to be finishing up Chapter 20. I deployed the Chapter 20 quiz the week before the spring break, and some students completed it, other students didn't complete it. So I wanted to make that quiz available to students up until Wednesday of this week. I did get a couple of emails, an email in particular from a student that emails me probably 4 or 5 days a week, and they know who they are. That indicated that Chapter 21 was not deployed yet, and this was purposeful. So at any rate, we are going to be covering Chapter 21 this week as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. And then I also am making available the opportunity for students to submit their paper one time. And I have one student out there that's going to look to submit his paper 15 times to ensure that he gets an A on the paper. This is not the design for this, young man. The design for this is for me to evaluate a one-time submission of a student's paper to give him or her guidance, guidelines, additional structural learning as it relates to APA 6th edition form and style. This is not an opportunity for me to grade your paper and give you a score on it so that you know what to do more of or what to do less of. All this is if you were to come to see me in my office, I would allow you to present your paper one time and I take a look at it and I give you some ideas on what you could do to improve it. But this is not an assignment opportunity where I'm going to give you an 80% on it now and then say, okay, you got to do 20% more to get an A. That's not the design. As a writer, if you complete your research thoroughly, if you review the APA 6th edition textbook that you were supposed to purchase and or use the resources that are provided by our library and or Purdue OWL in regards to APA, you write your paragraphs once, each paragraph, one time, set it aside, go back and review it again, Set it aside. Then use the Grammarly tool that I spoke to you students about. Put it through Grammarly so that Grammarly can help you with punctuation and those types of things. I mean, we're in an area today where we have tools or a mechanism that'll, in essence, check your grammar for you. Be cautious that Grammarly will miss a spelling. It'll tell you that a word is spelled correctly, but you have to use the word in the correct context. So then you'll read your paragraph a third time. Now you'll notice that I've been specific to say paragraph because I am a firm believer that if you write your paper 3 to 5 sentences at a time, 5 to 8 at maximum, and you review what you've written there, and you comb through it iteratively, then you're going to have a better manuscript. You're going to have a clear and concise picture that you can reflect to me, and I use picture metaphorically speaking. You're going to have a clear, concise, cohesive document. But if you write your paper one time and you just assume that it's perfect, because I know I've done this as a doctorate candidate, I write something once and I go, well, Henry Young, you're perfect. You're the best thing since sliced bread. Wrong. Invariably, when I read it the second time, I say, oh, what were you really saying? Then I read a third time and I go, oh, okay, I almost get it. And it's not until the fourth time that my professor sends it back to me, and I'm frustrated and I'm mad, and I say, okay, Dr. Cassell, you don't like me. And I say, okay, Dr. Cassell, you like other students better than me. Then the third time I go, no, Henry, it has nothing to do with Dr. Cassell. This has to do with your ability to write and evaluate and correct and edit. That's all this is about. So I know that's a long-winded rendition in terms of why this item that you see here on the bottom is provided for you students. And you'll notice there's no points. Keep in mind when you submit this, again, it's going to take me about 4 to 5 days to look at it, and I'll look at it one time. And make sure you don't submit a PDF at all. And I want to be able to redline it and do some annotated edits on it. And then you're going to need to go back into this assignment after you've submitted it and take a look at it. And again, remember, you get one submission. Okay? So keep in mind that the more thorough that submission is, then the finer tooth comb that I can comb through it. Okay? And then the only other thing I wanted to introduce today, and I do appreciate it, sorry for the long-winded rendition. These professor comments, the professor's comment is the title of these videos that I'm going to do on a weekly basis. I'll probably just do one of them. And this is really designed to get the students kind of a starter, as it were. Right? Let's start the student off in such a way that I give some introductory discussion in terms of the chapter. So one of the things that this chapter is going to discuss is the fact that now that we've identified market structures, right? And we haven't really actually done that yet. Let me review that. We haven't talked about market structures yet. So that's coming next. But the thing that we want to obviously look at now is that every corporation that you students are going to be writing on, one of the mandates was that the corporation was a publicly traded company. And by virtue of the company being publicly traded, there's going to be shares that the company is going to provide. Again, this chapter will talk at length about the various mechanisms that are included in our financial market that allows for corporations to operate on a day-to-day basis and sell stock in exchange for equity. A person buys a share of stock. Let's say I want to buy a share of Amazon stock today, which I would love to, but I think the Amazon stock today is probably $1,600, $1,700 per share. And typically you have to buy 100 shares if you for the stocks that are traded on the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. So I wouldn't really be able to afford a share of Amazon, but if I purchased a share of Amazon, they would take my money, which we call contributed capital, and then I would have on my computer a piece of document, a transaction record that would show that I have equity, common stock equity in Amazon, totaling 1 share, right? And so as Amazon stock increases or declines, then my equity in Amazon, that is as an investor, would increase or decline as such. So a share of stock is a legal claim of ownership to a share of a corporation. This is critical. This is important. This is why the stock exchange is something that you hear about every day, right? Stocks are up, stocks are down. The NASDAQ is up, and the NASDAQ is down. Well, there's 3 significant changes that have taken place on a daily basis. This is in terms of if you were to buy a share of Amazon or you buy a share of Ford. Moreover, you buy a share of Starbucks. Well, the changes that are taking place, number one, can be an upswing in the total number of daily traded shares. That means more people hear about the company is doing well. They purchase more stocks. People or investors might think or hear about the company not doing well, so they sell stocks. So the total number of shares, this is the basis for the amount of equity shares that are out there. Number 2, greater day-to-day volatility in the number of shares. So number of daily traded shares, and then the volatility of the number of trades, right? And so the number of trades then might be by virtue of, are these trades that are happening online? Are these trades that are happening on the actual stock floor? Are these trades that are happening by virtue of what we call ETFs, electronically traded funds? Are these trades that are bottled up or grouped in what we might call mutual funds? Where is the trade actually happening? And then number 3, more transactions at the end of each day. And again, this is one of those aggregate values that we might say, well, yesterday there were 1,000 shares of Amazon traded. Today there were 2,000 shares of Amazon traded. Well, the key is that there's 1,000 more shares on the second day than there were on the first day. So in this chapter, you'll learn what makes market stock shares. That is, you'll learn about markets for shares, and find out how to observe the changes that have been influenced, that influence the variation of stock prices. Another important element that you'll learn about in this chapter is called economic rents. And economic rents is one of those things that I liken it to the fact that if once you receive your degree, you're going to have a level of economic rent capacity, that you're going to be able to market yourself in the world and make wages, right? But economics, economists call wages rents in this context when we talk about financial environment. So an economic rent is a payment for the use of any resource over and above its opportunity cost. Thus, rent has a unique meaning in economics. One of the things that's important, and I think in my mind, is in terms of economists originally used the term rent to designate payment for the use of land. And that is, a noted economist, David Ricardo, indicated that the concept of economic rent is associated with rent for labor. That is, professional sports stars, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. He had a level of economic rent that garnered him a little over $38 million a year. Hip-hop entertainers such as Beyonce and Jay-Z. I was looking online the other day and it says that Jay-Z is worth $900 million. That's economic rent, right? Movie stars like Denzel Washington, Tom Cruise, for that matter, Brad Pitt. They make somewhere in the area of $25 to $30 million per movie. Now, on the one hand, you might say, okay, that's their wages. That's the income that they earn. But from an economist's perspective, that's economic rent of their labor position. That is because each of these individuals, as I mentioned, Kobe Bryant, Jay-Z, Tom Cruise, they all have a unique oneness, a unique attribute that no one else has. So in this regard, economic rent is similar to wages, one of the things that you'll see in this chapter. Lastly, very, very important, and I'll leave you with this. So once we've discussed the stock element of a company, where the trades are happening, what type of corporation that is being considered, then we talk about the economic rent component, that is, as a worker. If John is working for a company, and this is just an arbitrary person named John, and he's making $35,000 per year, in this context, his economic rent is $35,000. Now, one of the things that might make that statement that I made a little bit ambiguous is that John is using computers. John, if he is a computer tech, he's actually using the corporation's computers to make money. So the fact that John is earning money, his economic rent would have to include something slightly different. I want to keep you with that. I have a call I have to take, and I'll get back to you soon.